Do you prefer being the hunter or the hunted?
But it's always easier to be the hunter because you've almost got nothing to lose.
Box, box, box. Box, 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 box.
Hi, I'm Talking Tire. Every episode, 3 guests in the box to break down what's soft, medium, and hard. Let's check it out.
Welcome to Box, 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 a quick pit stop into the world of Formula One. Episode 5 is about adrenaline, and you're going to hear from a driver who's about to move teams and 2 team principals, the first of which knows a thing or two about winning.
Box, box, box.
All right, next to box, we have Red Bull Racing team principal Christian Horner. Christian, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Now, the tempo is rising this season. Are you enjoying the increased competition?
I don't know whether enjoyment is the right word, but it's certainly more intense, and I think it's certainly more of a challenge. I mean, last year, you have to remember, was a sort of a unicorn year for us. This year, 7 race winners.
Do you prefer being the hunter or the hunted?
Well, it's always easier to be the hunter.
Why?
Well, because you've almost got nothing to lose, and you're just throwing everything at it. When you're the hunted, you've got everything to lose. But you have to change your psyche in that, and in that not just being defending all the time. I think sometimes you have to attack races, weekends to get on the front foot rather than just being on the back foot.
Classic case of what Charles Leclerc did in Monza against the McLarens, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, that was a brave strategy. I mean, that tyre, from what we saw after the race, he'd extracted every ounce of performance and life out of it, and that brave decision paid off for him.
Now, you've been at Red Bull since the very beginning.
Yeah.
I did want to discuss how much more complex is winning today than it was back in the mid 2000s.
Way more complex. I mean, the amount of data that these cars produce now, the amount of intricacies that are involved is huge, and just the speed at which that's developed since when we first started winning in 2009 to where things are now are just massive. So I think it's the technology that's been particularly impressive on how quickly it's evolved.
But the 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon, that bit's the same? Or has that changed as well?
No, that's changed as well. I mean, just again, the amount of knowledge that you're getting from these cars, how you manage races, how you manage the tires through a race to extract the maximum performance. And I think that that definitely has changed and evolved as our understanding has grown and grown.
Now, this episode is about adrenaline.
Yeah.
And we've seen, is it right foot, left foot? Which is the one that jiggles?
Both of them.
Both.
Both, I'm ambidextrous.
Look, what gets the adrenaline going? Why? Is it nerves?
I think it's just competition, isn't it? It's adrenaline, and I think, I love racing, I love competing, I'm a competitive person naturally, and I love the sense of team. Formula One's the biggest team sport in the world, and we have a phenomenal team, and I'm very privileged to lead that team, and I think that it's that sense of unity and being in it all together and competing against some immense oppositions. I mean, just remember we are a subsidiary of an energy drinks company taking on Ferrari, Mercedes-Benz, McLaren, all these massive brands. But it's that sense of competition that still ignites the passion.
What bit of the competition gets you most passionate? Is it quali? Is it the start of the race? Is it the guys coming in for a pit stop?
I think it's the wheel-to-wheel racing always. That's the bit that's what everybody's tuning in to see, and I think that's the bit that I still get the biggest buzz out of. A sublime qualifying lap is hugely rewarding. It's almost artistic, the skill that these drivers have. But I think that wheel-to-wheel racing, when it comes down to 2 guys in the cars going for it on some incredible circuits that we race at, that's the bit that really ignites that passion.
Do you get more nervous? Does the adrenaline flow more in your current role than when you were racing yourself? He used to be a racing driver.
I was at Goodwood last weekend racing in a Mini, and I would say that the adrenaline in the car? Is it more than out of the car? I think the problem with being out of the car, though, and when you're standing in the pits and you're watching the start, you're a passenger. You're not, and that was the hardest thing, stepping out of the cockpit, was suddenly you're not in control of anything. And I think probably most team principals or CEOs are control freaks. And it's that sense of, right, okay, that's completely out of our control now. And I think that is the most nerve-wracking part of any Grand Prix, is that first 500 meters.
Are you a control freak?
Control freak. I think you like to know what's going on.
Across all areas of the business?
You can't know everything, and you have to trust the people around you and empower them, because you can't be a specialist, in everything. But you want to keep your finger on the pulse. You want to know what the tempo is, and that way you apply the attention where it's needed.
Quick word on the Mini. Have you still got it?
What, the Mini or the? Well, I out-qualified some fairly heroic driver. Jimmy Johnson was sat behind me on the grid.
Jimmy Johnson, NASCAR driver
behind me on the grid.
Front-wheel drive Mini too.
Yeah, I think I out-qualified Jean-Eric Verne, or was at least alongside him.
You've definitely still got it.
So the old magic was there in the wet, not so much in the dry.
Look, last one from me. And while we're talking about who's got it and who hasn't got it, Max Verstappen needs no introduction here.
Yeah.
What is his most outstanding quality?
Just his mental strength, that mental resilience, the big point moments. Like any great sportsman, it's always when the pressure's really on to deliver, and that is what he's been absolutely outstanding at.
Okay. Mental resilience is a nice segue into what I'm going to ask you to do next, because this is Tyre.
Yep.
Tyre has a question, but she only asks her question if you click your fingers. So,
right.
If you could.
Here's Tyre question. What kind of personality are you? Soft, medium, hard?
That's a very good question. When you liken it to one of Pirelli's tyres, it's got to be an intermediate, because you've got to cover all weathers. And good in a storm.
Christian, thank you very much.
Box.
Next, let's head a little way down the pit lane and hear from someone who's still relatively new to the job of team principal.
Box.
Our next person to make a pit stop is the team principal of VCARB, Laurent Mekies. Laurent, great to see you first of all. How are things?
Good. Always nice to bump into you and to be in the same place. So I'm sure it's going to be fun.
Well, I want to talk to you first of all about being a team principal. You've had many different roles in Formula One. What makes being a TP unique?
I don't know. At first, it's about the people, no? So as a team principal, you realize that your only added value, if any, is to put your people in the right environment for them to perform. There is no point in trying to think you are going to be able to guide them there and there. The truth is, you should have the best experts and make sure they have the right environment to work. So it's very often about stepping back and making sure that in the big pictures they have what they need, they can perform at best, they are talking to each other, and they're happy.
What is the magic formula, particularly with racing drivers? How do you get the best out of racing drivers?
There is no magic formula like always. It's about people relationships. That's, I think, what we all love. It's about the values you put in the project are the value that you put in your personal relationships. We like to think that we are performance obsessed, that we are no bullshit, that we are no blame, and it's that sort of transparency that you also want with your drivers. To be able to tell each other what is right and what is wrong. And maybe sometimes we don't say to each other the same things, and when you guys turn up, but I think it's key. It's not a magic formula, but it's key that when the door is closed, we can tell each other what we think. It doesn't mean we have to agree. It doesn't mean we will not change our mind, but that level of transparency is a basic for everything.
I love what you say about being obsessed with performance, and you are originally an engineer by trade. Is it a coincidence that 8 of the 10 teams in Formula One are now run by former engineers? If you're ever a former engineer, but maybe I should say by engineers.
I don't know really. You know, you can look at it in very different ways. You could also argue that the best two teams are not run by engineers. So you know, there is always different ways to look at it. Obviously, it's a very complex sport. It's probably the most complex sport in the world, arguably. But you know, you don't have to be an engineer to run complex sport. And I think yes, there have been some natural paths for engineers, including myself. And it's great, but I don't think it means that it is now only that profile, or that you won't see different profile. I think it's actually quite cool to see different background reaching that sort of positions, and it's also more enriching for everyone.
And as a TP, as a team principal, does it get the adrenaline going? I mean, in a quali session, in a race?
So you are going to be very disappointed. If you talk about pure adrenaline, there is many other jobs in F1 that will get you at a higher level. Now, think about all the people that have an instant direct impact on what's going on the racetrack. Okay, not even mentioning the drivers, no, but think about the mechanics waiting for the pit stops. Think about the race engineers having to reply to their drivers in a split second. Think about the guys that needs to make the call for the pit stops, and they are getting real adrenaline rush, and you know, I've been lucky to in the past to do some of these jobs, and you do get that incredible flow of adrenaline, and you do see a big queue in the bathroom after the race.
Yeah, but what about you? So you feel one step removed from that now?
Yeah, of course. You know, you are one step back from that. Because
I'm a bit disappointed. I thought.
Yeah, no, but I told you it would be big. But that's the truth. But in fairness, it also reflects quite well what perhaps the job is. As we said earlier, you know, it's about sometimes stepping back and making sure the other guys, the clever guys, have what they need to perform. And you know, it's not anymore what is probably has never been. But it's certainly not a one-man show where you can jump in and say, you know, we should do that now, because you should have the right people and the right structures for them to do that.
Laurent, tell us a little bit about VCARB now. New colours, look great, but the facilities in Faenza have, over the years, been improved and improved. You've obviously got the wind tunnel in England. Just, you know, where are your goals now with this race team?
Look, it will be very comfortable to tell you, look, you know, we are a small team, we are a junior team, and we want to stay there. No, it's not true. You know, Racing Bulls, VCARBs, it's a team today. It's more than 600 people. We have these two headquarters. It's unique. We are the only teams to have two headquarters for the chassis side. You know, with Faenza and Bicester. We are building a brand new headquarter in the UK that will replace Bicester. That will be in Milton Keynes. So we are designing everything that the regulations require us to design, which means whatever 70% of the car. We have the capacity to produce the very large majority of these parts ourselves in-house. So it's a huge operation, and it's true that we are probably not very good at showing that to the outside world, because we like confidentiality, and we don't like to want to expose your when you are trying to build competitive advantage. But the truth is, it's a fully independent manufacturers, and you know, in terms of where we are going, we say many times we want to top that midfield, and it looks quite easy if you say it like that. But then again, after you look at the grid and what is it to top the midfield, and it's to beat one or two manufacturers and one or two very established teams, and it's not going to happen by luck just because you say it. It's going to happen because you're actually putting together a stronger organization than these guys. That's what we are trying to do.
And it's all coming together, I feel. Do you think Formula One in 2024 is the most competitive it's been in the 25 odd years that you've been involved in F1?
Personally, I absolutely think so. You know, if you look at the midfield today, and it's more than the midfield, it's 2/3 of the grid. You have these big companies, 600, 700, 800 people, building their car in different countries, turning up at the racetracks with different drivers, going around that 6 kilometers lap, and ending up 10 of them in the same tents. So that's just, and if you are in Q3 there, you are probably going to qualify between P8 and P10. It's a complete different story in the weekend. You can tell yourself a complete different story, where in truth, we simply didn't have enough performance there, and we simply didn't nail every detail as we should. So that's how harsh the sport is. You know, you drop a little bit any of the details that you need to put together to nail everything, and suddenly you are not P8 anymore, but you are P13, and then it's a very different race.
Isn't it amazing? Get yourself on the right side of that 900s and you're having a completely different weekend.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's about getting every small details to fall. They are all on the edge, and you need in the race weekend to make them fall on the right side. So everybody is good enough to put their 100 details of the weekend on the edge. We are all there. Nobody has it off. We are all there, and it's about making it falling on the right side one after the other, and then you top the group, and then you go home with the big points.
You know that when Yuki first came into Formula One, he said that 67-year-old Franz Tost was probably fitter than him. Obviously not the case now, but I think the question everyone at home wants to know is, are you fitter than Yuki Tsunoda?
I tell you what, I'm certainly not as fit as Franz is. That's absolutely certain, even though he's 68. He's actually coming tomorrow. You know, the drivers, you need to give them credit. They all became super high-level athletes. And fine, they do Formula One. Fine, you don't see them suffering as much as you do in other sports. But they are super fit athletes. And if you add to the physical constraints they have in the car, if you add the fact that they talk to their engineers 5 times in the lap, they interact with the steering wheels 5 or 10 times in the lap, and then most of what they say goes on world television, then you get a little bit a scale of the overall level of pressure they must feel.
Phenomenal athletes, and it's been phenomenal to have you on the show. Thank you. Last thing, we have one question from Taya here, and she does amazing things. If you click your fingers just above her, she'll ask you a question.
Here's Tyre question. What kind of personality are you? Soft, medium, hard?
Whoa. Well, I tell you what, Pirelli is teaching us something, amongst other things, is that, a good medium tires, it's as good as the hard on some days and as good as the soft on some other days when it needs to be. So we all try to be a very good Pirelli medium tires.
Brilliant answer. Laurent, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Box.
And finally, the driver. Someone who's known by some of his teammates as a career killer.
Box.
Well, next into the box, we have Haas driver Nico Hülkenberg. How's the Hulk?
I'm pretty good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. I'm dressed up for the occasion.
Yes, you look very dapper.
Especially for you.
Thank you, Tom.
Now, Hulk, this episode is all about adrenaline. So let's talk about that. How much do you rely on adrenaline for performance?
Oof, tough question. I think it's quite a natural kind of process, when you get into the car, and especially, when you fire it up and you drive out, it just, naturally kicks in, and you're on the edge, you're on the limit with the cars, with the track, with yourself. So I think the adrenaline always kicks in, but it is very important to have it, especially some races where you're fighting jet lag maybe or something and you don't feel the sharpest. The adrenaline tends to save you and to get you awake again.
Which part of the weekend do you feel the most adrenaline? Is it a quali lap, or is it just before the start? Coming into the pits for a pit stop?
But all of the ones that you just mentioned, because all of those are high pressure situations, very intense, where everything comes together, and obviously the most important and meaningful ones. But yeah, a quali lap, you kind of got your heart in your mouth, feeling the rush, and going through the processes on the in lap. Still your heart rate is high. You're thinking about the next attempt coming in, quick change in the box. Race start is always very, very intense. It's actually the only time where I really feel actively, my breath. I'm a bit more fast breathing, and heart rate is up because it's just so intense.
Hey, can you give us some stats, or is it secret? What
No,
does your heart rate do?
I don't know, to be honest. I never measured it. I've never looked into that, but
I remember your former Williams teammate Rubens Barrichello saying that he put a heart monitor on, and I think he was up at 220.
Really?
For a start, yeah.
At that age, you can't get to 220.
yeah, it was. This was 15 years ago.
No, but you do feel it, and again, yeah, when you're racing someone or when you come into the pits, you know, because there's so many things that you have to manage right. It's just, yeah, high pressure situations, but the ones that I think we kind of like and live for, you know, and the ones that make it worthwhile and the ones that are challenging but we enjoy.
And do you feel it more on a street track than you do a permanent track?
I think so, definitely. Street circuits just, you know, put you more on the edge. There's no room for error. There's either, you know, an Armco right there or a concrete barrier that do not move. So it immediately rises the intensity, and adrenaline is so much higher on a street circuit compared to a race, a normal racetrack.
What about Le Mans doing 250 miles an hour down the Mulsanne Straight at night?
Not so much adrenaline. It's cool. It's nice because it's kind of, you know, not like in a night race in F1 where everything is lit up. It's kind of dark and you only have your headlights, and inside the cockpit you have all this kind of yeah, everything looks like blacklight. You know, all the buttons, they have like a color, and it all looks pretty. But it's a very cozy setting and a very unique experience. I enjoyed that, but it was pretty chill at night.
Well, look, you won that race, that Le Mans race back in 2015, and it does beg the question.
I had good teammates, yeah.
Yeah, you had good teammates, but also I was quite surprised, given that you beat Audi to the victory in 2015. I was quite surprised they actually got on the phone to you and said, "Come and drive for us in Formula One."
That's 10 years on, and it's different people involved now. They can't be that bitter.
Look, let's talk briefly about Audi. It's a hugely exciting project for you, for the team. I feel like we're witnessing the rebirth of Nico Hülkenberg. Is that kind of how it feels?
Not really the rebirth, but it's going well. And you know, that second stint of my career after the 3 years break, it's been good. I've really enjoyed myself. I think it's successful, and you know, 2 years at Haas that are going currently quite well. Obviously, want to finish well and end it on a high. And then, yeah, having landed that factory drive with Audi was you know, pretty amazing. Not something that I expected or planned, but certainly it happened. All parties wanted it, so exciting, big challenge, a lot of work ahead.
Are you going to be more than a racing driver at Audi?
I guess so, yeah, because you know, you're representing the brand globally. I think there's not one like race we go to where Audi isn't, you know, present as a car brand. So yeah, it's going to be a lot more busy on the marketing side. It's going to be a lot more ambassador stuff going on.
But also, Hulk, in terms of building a race-winning team, are you going to take some of that responsibility on in trying to help Mattia Binotto and the guys do that?
Sure, as much as I can. You know, the drivers, obviously, the input is important, but then, and on the other hand, there's only so much we can do, and it's a big challenge. Look, there's huge competition out there with Aston Martin also just you know, upgrading all their technical staff, but it's a race. It's highly competitive, so we need to do a good job.
And you are one of the most experienced drivers on the grid. Interesting you mentioned Aston Martin. Alonso celebrates 400 races later this year, should I say. How much do Audi want your experience? How does it help? How does that make you a better driver? How does it help you make them a better team?
I think experience does help and is key. Obviously, key, and you have to have speed. You know, speed, consistency. Teams want performance. They need points. They need results. So I think first and foremost that's important. But then experience, you know, brings a whole other range of benefits. You know, when you talk about team building, about car development, about setup work, and it's just something, you know, I have a big toolbox because I've been around for a couple of years. And that's certainly a little, you know, benefit over some drivers, rookies or drivers with little experience. And you know, in our industry and business, it's quite unique that we don't get to practice a lot. So usually you're just straight into a race weekend. There's not a lot of practicing time, and that kind of, to some extent, plays into the older guys' hands and to the experienced ones.
All of this talk about the future begs a would you rather question. Would you rather see 10 minutes into the future or 3 years into the future?
10 minutes or 3 years? 3 years, of course.
But why? 10 minutes would be useful in a race situation, I guess.
Yeah, but not right now. Right now, I know what my next 10 minutes is going to be like. But 3 years obviously gives you a lot more info. Could you readjust? Could you change things then if you'd seen it?
I don't know. That's the question, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll go 3 years.
All right, brilliant. Well, look, final thing from us. Now, meet Tyre. This is Tyre. If you click your fingers just over Tyre, she's got a question for you.
Here's Tyre question. What kind of personality are you? Soft, medium, hard?
Ooh. I think I've got them all three at different times. You know, you need to roll them out. Depends on the situation you're in, but I can be hard, I can be soft, and I can be medium.
When are you hard?
Hard, I'm with my daughter when it comes to education. You know, it needs to be, I'm the strict one, I think, in our like relationship there as the daddy. Hard, I'm, you know, hard and fair with myself, with my team, when it comes to work and, you know, what's good, what's bad.
Medium?
Medium, kind of with you, I'm always medium. You give the medium vibes.
Okay, all right. Bang average then, all right. What about soft?
Soft, again, depends the occasion, but you know, you don't always have to be tough in life, and in the right occasion, when softness and kindness is needed, it's there.
Brilliant. Hulk, great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode of Box, please share with your friends. And also look out for the next episode, which is going to be all about challenge. Bye for now.